therefore, Thandi feels like she can come to this area to have an eat, because the kill was hoisted into this tree. Oh, there's the leopard in the tree. Sky, very good question. You say, how do we know that there isn't another kill? We don't. There could easily be another kill. There, everybody, is Hosana, the male leopard, sitting in his tree with his delicious breakfast. Good morning, Hosana. It's wonderful to see you. Now, just directly behind him is the way that Thandi and the little cub were coming. So they could be coming this way. It's possible that there is another kill. That's absolutely possible. She certainly seems to be leading the cub somewhere. It could be to another den site, though. We checked the den site that we thought she was keeping earlier this morning. It's definitely not still active. And so that cub for the last 24 hours or so has been stashed in a different place where we haven't identified. So this is a young male leopard, like I said, 2 years old. Well, he'll be 2 in a month's time. And he is Thandi's brother. Chris Bear, you say, how are the guides not in danger with no protection? Well, Chris Bear, it's because we're so unconscionably brave that we go out without protection. You know, risking our lives to bring you entertaining scenes from the middle of Africa. Chris Bear, I'm being totally facetious. This animal does not see this vehicle or its occupants as something to eat. He's completely used to them. He has become completely used to them from years of, well, 2 years of being around vehicles. And most importantly, however, they see human beings as a threat. So they do not see us as something to eat. And they're very happy to tolerate our presence, especially in vehicles. On foot, he'd jump out of this tree and run away. So they do not see, African animals especially, do not see animals here, or human beings, as things to eat. We are seen as this sort of apex predator. And the only real animal that doesn't see us like that is a crocodile, which sees us as fair game. Hello, Dawn. You want to know about how we know where the animals are? And do we have trackers out there following them the whole time? No, Dawn, we don't. Oh, he's seen something. There's something going on behind him here. I'm listening out for bird alarm calls. There's a Franklin alarm calling now to where he's looking. A Franklin is a ground-dwelling bird, and if it sees something like a cat, it will most certainly go pa-chee, pa-chee, pa-chee. And he will pick up on that. He will know what this means. And I wonder if that isn't Thandi coming through the undergrowth with her youngster. Now, if Thandi does come this direction, I will back off slightly because she can be a little bit nervous when her baby is around. And it will be fascinating to see how they react to each other. We will endeavour to get our geniuses in the tech department onto that problem and sorting it out for you. Now, I would have said Thandi should have been here by now if she was going to arrive. So I don't think she is, and I think the suggestion that she could have a kill somewhere else is a very good one. Either that, or she was pressured to move away from the den site that she'd chosen by that lioness. We were very lucky to see that cub. We just came round the corner and David said, "Ooh, leopard cub." Marvellous stuff. All right, I think we're going to shut off the action broadcast now, our unscheduled broadcast. Please keep watching out your social media feed. If Thandi and the cub do arrive here, we will most certainly go live with them again. So thank you very much for watching. Alrighty, so Tristan is up near Buffelshoek Dam, I think. Let's go up to him and find out about that lioness and see if he's got any sign of her. Here he has just come out of the tree. I don't think he's doing anything sort of amazing. I think he's just probably very full and wants to come and have a bit of a rest. He looked again sort of north and then a bit south, listening to birds' alarm calling, but I don't think Tundi's going to pitch up here. I more and more like the suggestion that she was either chased or disturbed by the lioness who was knocking about here yesterday, or perhaps she does have another kill. Ray, you're wondering about the tree that Hosana was in. It is called a Peltophorum africanum, or weeping wattle. It's got lovely yellow flowers on it, and often there are lots of nice fruit chafers, which are colourful beetles that live on the Peltophorum tree in the flowers. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, there's an impala. There's a leopard attached to it in the Peltophorum tree. There he goes. I'm sure he's just going to lie down. And have a lengthy sleep as the sun begins to warm the day. It's going to be something of a scorcher, I think. It's interesting. Ilana, aged just 14, you're wondering if the fur colour fades with age. And so he's sort of inherited that paleness, especially around the face. But I don't think he'll get much paler than he is now, because of course then he'll become rather white, which will make him a bit, well, obvious. I'm just going to reverse slightly, see if we can't get a slightly better view of him. Oh dear. Vehicle having a hot rev for some reason. Is that a bit better, David? There we go. It's been a little while since I've spent any time with Hosana. It is very pleasant to be with him again. Now, for those of you who were on drive yesterday, we did deploy Ronald the rover, and I will do the same again as long as not too many people come into the sighting. And no Texans coming here. Now, Wharton, nice one from you about Hosana and Tingana and whether or not they're still interacting. Well, I mean, not by choice. Well, certainly not from Tingana's point of view. Tingana is, as most male leopards are, wants to be on his own. He doesn't like to see his son too much. He hisses at him and growls and bares his teeth. And so Tingana will definitely not seek out this fellow. But this fellow seems unusually for leopards to like company. And I don't know if he's still seeking out his father. I know he did once or twice, sort of purposefully move towards him and then try and lie next to him. And I don't know if he's still doing that or if the sort of hormones of puberty have kicked in to the extent that he's now starting to feel a little bit more independent. He is a very fine fellow, isn't he? Now cleaning his face, which is unusual for teenagers. They don't usually clean their faces at all. It is remarkable how much like house cats they are, isn't it? I know many of you have house cats. And I'm sure that you see the kind of behavior you're watching now almost on a daily basis. I do hope that your house cats don't kill the wildlife of your area, though. It is amazing how I've read an article once on the level of destruction wrought on bird populations in Britain by domestic cats. And it really is quite horrific. Way in the distance, male leopard calling. Much too far away for the microphone to pick up. That's what he was looking at there. A lovely cat to show you indeed. Hosana the leopard, and David and I were just saying to each other, well, you know, if you're going to get value out of the sighting, a hyena den is possibly the most value-riddled sighting you'll ever have. So, Ralph, I hope you're enjoying your hyena den. I'm sure you are. It's the sort of thing you would enjoy. Excellent. We are, of course, looking at Hosana the male leopard, who has decided to go to sleep. I am going to wait here for the rest of the drive, probably hoping to deploy old Ron Dog. That's how familiar we've become with each other once the vehicle that's here has moved on to other things. They do seem very intent on taking pictures of the grass around the few spots that are visible, so I don't think they're going anywhere just yet. Seem to be some new cameras on the back there. Some Christmas presents being put to good use. Well, they're being put to use. How good it is, I'm not sure. Oh, now, First Lady, you are asking a question that will get everybody discussing things, and it's very interesting. You say, who do I think will become dominant when Tingana either shakes off his mortal coil or retires gracefully like Mbula did? Do I think it will be Utahamba, the Rock, or Hosana, the Little Chief? The answer is I don't think either of them will be. I think that new male that's come into this area is slowly going to wheedle his way into the place. The two of them are much too young to be, even if Tingana were to drop dead tomorrow, they're both much too young to hold the territory here. Much more likely, as Tristan alluded to yesterday, would be that Quarantine would come back into this area. Quarantine, of course, Hosana's brother, but he's now 5. Is he 5? He's 4 and a bit. Yeah. And he's just about ready to take a territory of his own. It's possible that Djuma, the big male from up north, could come down here. But I think it's this new interloper who we saw once, just before I went on leave. I think he's the chap that would come in here and dominate, rather than any of these youngsters. You know, they're only going to reach their full size between 5 and 6 years old, and then they may be able to sort of take over this area. But for them to last another 3 or 4 years here without being chased out by a bigger male, very unlikely. The other option, of course, would be Shivambalana, who... do I mean Shivambalani? Yes, I do mean Shivambalani, who is another brother of this chap's, but 2 years older again than Quarantine, and it's possible that he could come back into this area. But I don't think that these two are going to become dominant here, and I hope they don't. As Tristan again was saying yesterday, we all feel a bit sad saying that we hope they don't come into the area, or that they leave the area, but really it's much better for the genetics. You want as deep a genetic pool as possible to reduce inbreeding as much as possible. And of course, if he does stay here, he will eventually mate with his well, sister, cousins, aunts. Alrighty, now the other vehicle is just departing. What I'm going to do is turn Ronald on. No, yes, they are departing. Okay, we're going to turn Ronald on. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to deploy him in the shade. I'm just getting a message from Andrew. Yeah, affirmative. We're going to park in the shade there. And I'm going to deploy Ronald there, and I'm going to reverse back into this area so that we can see them both. And that way, that if Ronald comes close, which is what happened to Tristan yesterday, you know, the leopard's not going to be under the car. Mike, what was that comment? I'm sorry, I missed it. Ron dog indeed. I'm going to put him down here. All right. Got a picture from Ron dog. I'm going to try and not run Ron dog over. That will rather ruin this experiment quite quickly. Okay. So Ronald is now on the floor there. We'll park ourselves in the shade where we have a view of both of them. Sorry, boy, to make such a horrid noise. Right. Let's turn off the switch by my knee and turn it back on. Unfortunately, we're not getting any movement from Ronald. That is very irritating. That's known as a damp squib. Oh, how irritating. Let me go further. We're going to have to go back. We're having a look at Ronald's feed now. Sorry, Hosana. Old buddy, old pal. We were hoping to give you a bit of entertainment. Ronald, what is your problem? Now, and try not to fall out of the car like another friend of mine did, mentioning no names. Tristan, did I say that? Okay, let's do this. We may have to reset Ronald, I'm afraid. Well, yes, Ronald is now with Hosana. Now, all we did was we moved him from where we put him just slightly, and the noise of the engine got this little fellow up. And so now he's investigating his new friend Ronald. And very much what we're doing here is trying to habituate him to Ronald. The idea is not to have an interaction like this. I mean, ideally, this is not what we want. This is inevitable, though. And I don't believe we're doing any harm. Yes, we're modifying his behavior, of course we are, but I'm hoping that he will just simply habituate to Ronald in exactly the same way as he will habituate to the vehicles. And he's now walking away. Now let's... I mean, this really is quite an astonishing picture. I'm starting to understand why Tristan basically couldn't stop giggling the way he was. Okay, apparently we need to reboot Ronald because he's got words on it, but I'm not sure if we can do that from here. I'll just quickly do this. I'm not sure why that is. He's just rebooting himself. All right, now, as I say, the point behind this, there we go, we've got rid of the words. The point behind this is not to use this rover as a gimmick. It is really to get us a different view of the wilderness that we couldn't get before. And this is the perfect animal to do this with because he's relaxed. He's got a kill here. He's not going to leave because of Ronald. He's clearly intrigued by the rover and its movement, but he's not upset by it unduly. The idea is not to make him more domesticated, make him tamer or anything like that. It is to habituate him to another way of observing him, in the same way that he was habituated to this vehicle. So what I'm going to do very slightly now is just move him backwards, move him away from Hosana slightly. And let's see what happens. He's moving very slowly away. And in the same way as habituating an animal who's not familiar with vehicles to vehicles is a painstaking process, I suspect with most animals this would be fairly painstaking as well. It would be interesting, should we disguise him? Should we put trees on him, maybe? Should we put a tortoise shell? Well, James Richard, a very good question from you. You're wondering what would happen if Hosana were to scent mark on him. Well, Ronald is in no way waterproof, as we established when he was kicked into the pan by the elephant. And so I don't think you'll find that he would survive scent marking. All right, so we've moved him back. Now we're going to move him forward slightly. What we don't want to do is drive him directly at the leopard. There's just some shade in front here. See, the difference between this, I suppose, and a vehicle, or the big difference, is that this is, I mean, he's the same size as a large tortoise. And so, while the vehicle is probably fairly big and intimidating to the leopard, this thing certainly isn't going to intimidate him. But obviously, he's got a human smell about him, the rover. And perhaps that means that, or he certainly doesn't have a food smell about him. And that's why I think that rather than disguise him, well, I suppose we could disguise him with bushes. But I'm almost thinking that we should leave him as he is, because then he doesn't look like food. And once an animal like this gets used to his smell, then, I guess that he may eventually just carry on and let him move around slowly like this. I mean, how far away are they from each other? About 3 meters now, maybe? 10 feet or so? And as Tristan also said yesterday, this has got a very wide-angled lens. And so, I mean, Rover Mark II or Ronald Mark II may well have a slightly more sophisticated camera, like the one we've got on the drone, for example, that we can use to zoom, that so we can park a bit further away. We don't have to kind of get right up the animal's nose to get a decent view. Now, Hosana's going back to sleep. So I'll just approach very slowly. Now, if he does get up and move, obviously that's not ideal. But it is, we have to test the boundary. We have to test what we're able to do and what we can't do. Safe in the knowledge that he has a kill here. He's a young male leopard, confident young male leopard, so we're not about to freak him out completely. Like I say, I would never do this with Thandi. This, as Tristan pointed out yesterday, is the perfect animal to be doing this with. Yeah, X-Ranga, you see, camouflage, I think you're right. I mean, if he was to see a bush moving towards him, I think he'd probably be more inclined to go and investigate it. Does he... the unfamiliarity of it is not disturbing him to the extent that he wants to move away from it. Quite the contrary. He's moving towards it. Now, that's probably got something to do with curiosity and something to do with the fact that, if you move anything in front of a cat, they'll inevitably get up and investigate it. I think disguising him as a tortoise, for example, would be a mistake, because then you're basically saying, I'm food. We mustn't also forget that this leopard is a leopard that likes to interact. All right, now we've closed the distance to about 6 feet. And there I think I'm going to leave it. It's quite a nice picture he's got of us in the background. You can give us a wave, David. And I'm waving as well. And the leopard in the foreground. I think that is so cool. Tristan, I don't know if you watched yesterday, but he was so beside himself with excitement that I thought he might have a heart attack at one stage. He was giggling like a small child and saying the word, "This is so cool, this is so cool," again and again, which of course it was, and it is. So now we'll just let Ronald sit right where he is. So what I did, all I did was put him exactly where I said I was going to put him, and then we moved him slightly. The noise of his engines, or his engine, made Hosana perk up, and then he came to investigate, had a sniff. He didn't touch him like he did yesterday. He patted him once or twice yesterday. Hosana patted Ronald once or twice yesterday, and then did exactly what he done now. He's laying down next to him. I think also, the next step will be to try this with a pride of flat lions that have eaten something already, and they're just, in that kind of really dead sleep, and see how they react. Again, ideally not with little ones. I think Kahumas would be a good group to do it with, because the cubs aren't young. And then maybe Tamba would be another one to do it with. But it's going to be a question of habituating them. So you can just see him dropping off. Janine, this is exciting, isn't it? Well, yes, there we have a picture. I'm not sure which camera you're on, but you can see Hosana now has moved towards Ronald. Unfortunately, we've lost contact with Ronald, and Ronald is now immobile, and so he may be spending a fairly long day there. We're just going to let Johan have a go. Unfortunately, he's not moving anymore, so I can't move him. Anyway, this is Johan from Buffelshoek Hoek. Anyway, here we go. They've got a nice view now of Ronald and the leopard. And thankfully, Johan's being extremely understanding about the fact that Ronald is not mobile anymore. Ooh. So you can see, this is really, what we're looking at here is quite interesting. You can see the amount of disturbance created by the vehicle. Now, that's not because Johan's doing anything wrong. It's just because that's what vehicles do if you want to look at animals. How much less disturbance to the wilderness something like Ronald has. No, he doesn't. He just looks at it. He just comes up and looks, and then he's touched it once, and then he's left. Well, I haven't really moved once, but I'll tell you somebody who isn't having any luck is old Ronald. Now watch this. Ronald is trying desperately to move, but he cannot. He is stuck. And Hosana came to see him again, and I quite like this situation simply because as his engines are going, the cat is sitting right next to him, looking at him, getting used to the sound of his wheels turning, which is great. Now, Ronald's picture of him, you'd imagine from that angle, would be fantastic. And fortunately, Ronald is parked behind a piece of grass. And so all we can see is a few spots. So that's all Ronald's got, and you can see that he is stuck fast. He's completely unable to move now, going nowhere. So it could be quite a long day for us here. Now, I know that there are some of you who are watching who feel like this is some form of attempt to domesticate these animals or in some way interact with them. I must just reiterate here. Yes, I can certainly see why it might look like that. The plan, very much though, is to reduce our interaction. That's the whole point of these things. This is not an interaction tool, this is an observation tool. In the same way that this vehicle is an observation tool, but unquestionably affects the animal's life because, well, it's big and noisy and smelly. We hope that something like Ronald, as I said before, will actually reduce the effect that we have on these animals, so that we can put an animal, a thing like this, next to a lion kill and then back off completely and watch what's going on. So eventually we can put something like this perhaps at a hyena den, where the hyenas just ignore it completely, and then we're able to have almost a sort of 24-hour view, if you like, of the hyenas at their own angle, without them doing, one of the things they do when we're at hyena dens is they come up to the car when they're little, they bite the oil caps, and we will think it's quite cute and it's quite fun, and it is, and I have enjoyed countless sightings like that. But it's not the objective of what we're doing here. We're trying to observe nature. We don't want necessarily to interact with it. So this is just a great opportunity for us to see if this isn't another way of doing that. Now he's completely ignoring Ronald. Sorry about that. Now at Wild Guy, you're wondering if getting him used to human scent won't affect his wild behavior. That rover I don't think does smell. I suppose it smells slightly of human, but I think you'll find it smells much more strongly of plastic and gaffer tape, and the rubber of the tracks and that sort of thing. The idea is not to get him used to human smell at all. It's just to get him used to whatever that thing smells like. It's to get him used to having it around. And human smell he will get much more strongly from the vehicles filled with tourists, and also from our presence on foot, far, far more than he would from the rover. I can try and move backwards, David. Shall I do that? Well, that would be a little bit easier. Then I won't have to lie down in the car. I know he's moving. He's moving. Let's just let him move. He's going to go back to the shade, I think. Don't lie down there. It's very close by. He's just going to have a quick look at Ronald. I do think that there's an element of sociality in this interaction. I think that Hosana is a particularly social leopard, as I've said before. I think he likes interacting with things, and I think that's what's going on here. And this thing that he's interacting with is being far less unpleasant to him than any of the other leopards he comes across, which growl and hiss at him. Very lovely. All right, we're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous, from a leopard to a lizard.